now if we just move on to a general situation, like where we have the material, only charge is dielectric material medium you can consider, but rho equal to 0 and not exactly dielectric, it can be lossy. So lossy medium means there should be some kind of conductivity, sigma. So earlier we considered sigma equal to 0, and this sigma means conductivity. And then now if sigma equal to 0, of course we can consider still it is a neutral material medium, rho equal to 0. Though it is conductivity is there, some free carriers will be there, they can carry current, but as a whole material, any locally space dependent charge density is 0, neutral. So in that case, we will find that the Maxwell's equation give rise to some solutions which propagates, but it attenuates as well. So how that is coming? If you just start from the actual curl equation, also considering sigma not equal to 0, then you end up with, instead of 1 and 2 earlier you got for electric field and magnetic field equation, differential equation, you get like equation 8. So if you just separate them from the curl equation, decouple them, electric field and magnetic field, both of them will be looking alike again. And you see that sigma part is there. Here also sigma part is there, mu and sigma times things are there. And you can, of course, you see in equation 8, if you put down sigma equal to 0, then it is coming back to your equation 1 and 2. Earlier, whatever we discussed, same equation. Now when sigma not equal to 0, so you have some first order partial derivative also will be there along with the sigma and times mu. Okay. So this is the equation. Now we need to know what is the solution for this equation, this differential equation. So you can find the electric field solution from this equation, and magnetic field solution again from these equations, and then these electric field and magnetic field again you can actually relate them through your curl equation. So even though you can independently try to find a solutions, but you need help of original curl equation to find their relationship. Otherwise you cannot actually solve the constant of the because there is no boundary condition here available to you. Here it is kind of, it can be for unbounded medium, this equations. So you need original curl equation to relate electric field and magnetic field. Okay. So now you see, assuming the electromagnetic wave originates from a harmonic oscillators, you need to know that, well, where from this electric field and magnetic field is originating. You know that some rate of change of magnetic field and rate of change of electric field, they actually originate, they actually create each other, and they are the source for each other. But those originally some energy should be dissipated somewhere, something like antenna, for example. And that antenna, you know, that can radiate electromagnetic wave if there is a oscillator, charge oscillates or current oscillations is there across the antenna. So you can see that there will be some kind of radiation pattern. If suppose that antenna actually oscillating with a single frequency omega equal to 2 pi f, and that actually creating your electromagnetic wave. Electromagnetic wave is generating from a harmonic oscillator like antenna, for example, with having a frequency. We can say that this is a monochromatic. Monochromatic normally we say for light wave, but I think any single frequency you can say that monochromatic. And if this is the frequency of oscillations, so you know that electric field, that because of the current, electric field as well as magnetic field, they will be oscillating with this frequency. So when they radiates also from the antenna, both electric field and magnetic field, we can say that is actually sinusoidally oscillating e to the power j omega t. Now instead of sin omega t and cos omega t, we are using some exponential term here because we are putting some complex forms so that we can actually distinguish one field to another if there are two different sources. So even though they are same frequency, but they can have initial phase difference also. So that phase to include and treat them mathematically smoothly, it is easier to express them in exponential term, e to the power j omega t. So that is just for mathematical easiness, we consider that e to the power j omega t. Otherwise, for real term, we need to know what is the real part of it. That is what we need to know. So now, if you just think about both electric field and magnetic field is e to the power j omega t. There is no time dependent part will be there in electric field and magnetic field. It originates from the frequency here. So any time dependencies, if you see in your Maxwell's equation, that time dependent factor should be e to the power j omega t. But again, you know that electric field and magnetic field can be space dependent. And they are vectors, of course. Ex, Uy, Ez, Hx, Hy, Hz. So in Cartesian coordinate system, we can put down that thing. So in principle, we can just write down electric field and magnetic field in this form. There must be a solution of the equation 8. But we can write that one. We write electric field equal to Es. S stands for spatial. That means position dependent. So position dependent part Ex, Y, Z. And along with that, we also use vector notation and multiplied by time dependent part e to the power j omega t. So e to the power j omega t is known. As long as your frequency is known, this part is known. That originating from the source. And this part actually depends on your material property. Es, X, Y, Z. How it is happening. It can be complex also. We'll come to that point. This part, this can be vector, this can be XYZ dependent, this can be complex also. Okay, so any phase, if it is complex, that means you can consider it just in phasor form, it will have a phasor and magnitude. Similarly, magnetic field also we can write down like this. Now, we will just simplify equation 8 using 9. Why? Because you know, here in this equation 8, you have time dependent part is there. First order time derivative and second order time derivative here. So del t E will give you basically j omega in the outside. So j omega again E will return. And you take second derivative, then you have to just make a partial derivative of this term 2 times. That means you will get minus omega square times. So if you just put down here that del t equal to j omega, if you just replace here, you can consider this as an operator now because you know the nature of the time dependencies. Then this equation 8 will reduce to this equation 10. Simply you can try now itself. So if you just put down here, you can write down in this form with a consideration of gamma. We were defining a new parameter here, gamma equal to something like alpha plus j beta. Alpha beta plus j beta will come later. Actually gamma you have to replace because for this term. So once you put del t equal to j omega here and del t square equal to minus omega square, then if you just introduce this one as gamma, then the equation comes like this. Now since this one, the square root of j omega mu sigma plus j omega epsilon is equal to gamma, you know square root of this one, this is a complex form. So if you make a square root, actual gamma will become alpha plus j beta. It will be complex. It will have a real part. It will have a imaginary part as well. So both will be there. Alpha and beta you can consider real. Okay, alpha is the imaginary part, real part of the gamma, and beta is the imaginary part of this thing. They themselves are real. Okay, so now if you just try to see this equation 10, it is no more because you see, although e to the power j omega t there and you are putting del t equal to j omega times e to the power j omega t will be there also. But that thing has been removed in equation 10 because that is actually a factor to entire equation. So you can actually factor out. So you get actually equation 10 as a space dependent differential equation. So remember that space dependent means no time dependence is there. And of course, del square means, you know, del 2 del x2, del 2 del y2 plus del 2 del z2, all those type of things. So second order derivative, partial derivative will be there. Remembering that ES means we are writing ES xyz, this thing. So this is clear. So up to this point, we can say that from this equation 10, if we can solve this differential equation, because gamma is known. Gamma is in terms of frequency as well as material property. Epsilon, mu, and sigma. Material property you should consider that is known to you. Okay, and then once gamma known, then it is actually just a differential equation. You have to find the solution and satisfying all conditions of the Maxwell's equations, divergence theorem, etc. Of course, this actually derived from those satisfying situation. So once you solve this ES or HS here, and their relationship also you can establish by the Carl equation of the Maxwell's, then ultimate solutions you should write that, okay, that solution multiplied by e to the power j omega t. So the space dependent part multiplied by e to the power j omega t. Remember that initially when we started Maxwell's equation, we showed that ST is a function of time. That's a time, and it can be decomposed into different harmonics. Now here we have reduced it to only considering only one frequency, because we can understand that if we know how it behaves for one frequency, then we can just change this frequency and we can corresponding mu, epsilon, sigma, we can vary and then get corresponding solutions also. So all the frequency you can actually solve independently, and then you can find out, okay, you have to have superposition of all those frequencies, then you can get your time dependent signal. Okay, that is the whole idea. So since we are treating it in considering frequency is one constant, monochromatic, so we call this as a frequency domain solution. Okay, so if you want to solve it, then you are getting a solution for a certain frequency. That's why it is called frequency domain solution. Otherwise, if you want to solve any frequency, that means you have only the time dependent solutions. Signal is there. Suppose ST is there, and you want to put directly in equation 8 or in your Carl equations and try to solve those differential equation in time domain. That is actually very difficult to get analytical form. Whatever mu, sigma, everything is there, it's very time dependent, because so many frequencies are there, and all these frequency will depends on your mu, epsilon, sigma, so you have to change. So analytical solution to get, if it is a homogeneous something like that, you can get. Otherwise it is very difficult to get a solution in time domain, because time domain pulse, any pulse, you know, you can have a band of frequencies will be there. If it is a step pulse, you can infinite band. And if you have Gaussian, you will have some certain band will be there. All frequency will travel with a different velocity. Their mu will be different, epsilon will be there, different, sigma will be different. So it is difficult. So what you could do, you can solve that numerically. Okay, you can just create a file of epsilon, mu, sigma, that can be frequency dependent. All frequency range, what is the value, you can put maybe a little bit of analytical formula if you know, semi-analytical formula, or and of course that is needed, that knowledge is needed. And then you can also think of that, so all the frequency is there, and then not only epsilon, mu, sigma can be considered frequency dependent, you can also assume that epsilon, mu, sigma also space dependent. Inhomogeneous material. For coordinate to coordinate, at certain x, y, z point, you have some value, and some other x, y, z dependent, it can be some different value. So you can also incorporate that, and directly you can solve. Nowadays, I think a lot of computers, high power computers, high performance computers are there. People developing code to directly solve time dependent solutions. So that is called normally FDTD, and there are so many softwares are available in the market called finite domain time difference, finite difference time domain, FDTD, finite difference time domain. That means you have to discretize delta x, delta y, delta z. That is actually finite difference spatially. Time domain. So that you are solving in a time domain. Directly you are discretizing again delta t, 0 to delta t, what is the value, then you can again increase, then you can get all the solutions. So that is actually numerically perfect solution, nearly perfect solution you get if your discretizations and all boundary values are known to you, and discretization should be as small as possible. So that is the thing. But if you coming down to the frequency domain like this, whatever I am discussing here, you are restricting yourself with a single frequency. Only thing is that you are considering your field can be space dependent. So this field can be space dependent. That is also depends on that also directly correlating that if mu, sigma, epsilon, they are also space dependent, that also comes into this picture in gamma expression. If that is xy dependent, then your gamma value will be xy dependent also, xyz dependent. Sigma, gamma, sigma, mu, epsilon, if they are xy dependent, that also coming here. If it is a homogeneous medium, of course you can put gamma square is a constant for a certain frequency, and that should be must be alpha plus j beta in that form. So this is the whole background thing. So which parameter, what contribution, what is the consequence, those things at least you should know. Derivation, along with that, this type of qualitative understanding you should know. What is the contribution, why alpha? Can you just tell me that is there any possibility that alpha can be 0? That means you will have a only imaginary part here, j beta. That is possible when sigma equal to 0. So, but in this case we are considering sigma not equal to 0. Once sigma not equal to 0, you have alpha is coming. Otherwise, sigma equal to 0, this gamma will become just beta, j beta. So it is just an imaginary part will be there. So alpha contributes, alpha has a significance. So sigma actually contributes alpha, and alpha in turn, you will see that that is nothing but it will be coming like a loss. So now we try to solve the alpha value, Maxwell's equation, monochromatic plane waves in a lossy media. So monochromatic wave we are considering the loss coefficient alpha and phase constant beta can be derived as. So if you just try to have this one, this is your equation, right? Gamma equal to this one. It's a complex form. So you can actually directly solve this. What is the real part and what is the imaginary part? Real part is actually alpha and imaginary part is the beta. If you do a little bit of maths, just square root it and try to decompose into real part and imaginary part, then real part, that means alpha will be equal to this one and beta will be equal to this one. Okay. So you see, this is a same equation almost. Everything is same. For beta you are putting here plus, and for alpha you are putting -1 here. That is the difference. I think if you derive this equation, always it will be coming into your memory. You can recollect it anytime. It's a very easy derivation. You try once yourself to derive this one. So that you will get a lot of confidence. I think all the textbooks are there, but I think you derive yourself, and then you will get a little more confidence also. Now, so now we know that, or so far we have not compromised anything. Only compromise is rho equal to 0, sigma not equal to 0, and space dependent electric field, everything is there, and that electric field will have a vector. Magnetic field also will have a vector. It is space dependent, x, y, z, everything will be there. And then alpha beta will be this one. This is in general case, alpha and beta solutions will be like that. As long as you have sigma, mu, epsilon and frequency is given, then you can express what is the value of alpha and beta. So once you know alpha beta, that means you know the gamma value here, gamma square. That is what you have. Now, as before, what you do, you try to find out what is a possible one-dimensional solution. Okay, like before, you can consider that the field like a plane wave. That means field is having z dependencies, variation is there only. Okay, x dependencies and y dependencies, you can just stay blind that in that direction nothing is varying along x direction and y direction. Anything is varying, the electric field that is in the z direction. And one more condition, like before, you consider that electric field has only one component, only x direction, right? So now we have this differential equation here. This one will become d2E by dz2, because del y equal to 0, del z equal to 0. So it is only one dimensional. This nabla square will become like a just d2E, d2 by dz2. Same here. That means what you would expect, this ES is no more xy dependent, but only z dependent. HS also no more xy dependent, but only z dependent. That is the assumption you are assuming, right? And then if you solve that one, then your solutions will come like this. For electric field, z dependence is, if you just put, suppose it's a second order differential equation, and ES is only having x component, that is like a scalar. So this type of differential equation you solve, that will be sinusoidal. Similarly, this one also, this is a scalar equation. HS will be along y direction. From the Maxwell's equations, you can find out if ES is dominating along x direction, and HS will be in the y direction, suppose, because you are only considering z direction. So you remember that vector is actually, direction is x, but along that direction, field is not changing. Field direction is that one. So you should distinguish that spatial dependencies and vector direction. That should not be mixed up. Sometimes you guys confuse that. Okay, Ex component means it is x dependent. It need not be. Ex component can be only z dependent. Along the x direction, it will not vary. Only that direction it is oscillating, because it is a vector field. That's it. Okay. So in that case, your solution comes like that, x direction like this, because you have alpha plus j beta type of solution is there, right? And then the solution comes like this, and solution comes like this for magnetic field. So alpha is real, you remember that. Alpha is real means, and it is coming with a function of z. That means it is actually attenuating. So as long as alpha is non-zero, as it propagates, you will see that field will be attenuated. Along with that, you have this oscillation function is there. It will oscillate as a function of time, as well as it's a function of z, because along z direction you have sinusoidal solutions also you actually considering here, because it is a only z dependence is there. So equation is sinusoidal, solution is sinusoidal. So that sinusoidal we can express again in exponential term. So we can express time dependent version is there, e to the j omega t, and then you have this thing. So if you try to see this one, this is nothing but earlier originally we considered the solutions will be like that function of ct plus z or ct minus z. So this is actually like that, ct velocity times t, beta if you just take a common factor, then it is a similar type of solution. So this is actually representing wave is propagating in the forward direction, positive z direction. And associated magnetic field will be propagating also z direction with same phase relationship and same attenuation factor. But only thing is that magnetic field will have, according to the Carl equation, it will have along y direction if and only if electric field is along x directions. They are orthogonal. And you can do a little bit of work here with the Maxwell's equation, then you can show that this H naught and E naught are related through the Maxwell's equation, Carl equation, right? And del t there you can put also j omega. So if you do so, then you can find a relationship between E naught and H naught. Basically, H naught is, it's a kind of E naught scaled by eta. And this eta is a complex value, like this. So if you start, this is a bit of derivation. If you try, and I think within half an hour you can solve also. Otherwise you can consult textbook also. Otherwise derivation we can do for you also. Okay. So again, this eta value is the frequency dependent, mu dependent, omega dependent, sigma dependent. If sigma equal to 0, then you see J will cancel, omega will cancel, square root of mu by epsilon. That is called intrinsic impedance, mu by epsilon, if lossless. And again, if it is free space, mu will become mu naught, epsilon will become epsilon naught. Then eta will become eta naught. So it is basically a general equation. Okay, but in this case, only problem is that eta is now becoming complex. So once eta is complex, then you can actually represent it like a phasor form, a plus jb, something like that. So it will have a real part and you can have a complex phasor part will be there. So in that case, H naught and E naught will not be in phase, because H naught will be whatever phase is there for E naught, that is fine. Along with that, eta's phasor part will be added. That's why if sigma not equal to 0, then E naught and H naught will not be in phase. If sigma not equal to 0, if sigma equal to 0, then they are in phase. Of course, they are in phase. They may not be in phase. If you find again, mu and epsilon becomes sometimes, even though sigma equal to 0, nearly 0, but sometimes you will find that this epsilon value for certain condition can be complex also. So if epsilon is complex also, again they can be they may not be in phase. Although they are coupled, electric field actually generating magnetic field and magnetic field generating electric field, rate of time varying thing, they are changing, but they are actually not in phase. You remember that whenever you have studied probably the LC circuit also, that voltage development across the capacitor and inductor, they are not in same phase. Although your source voltage, time varying source voltage is common to both, because they can actually differently they can vary depending on their property. Okay, so here also, even though all these electric field, magnetic field associated to the Maxwell's equation, they are sourced from where? I think someone is trying to, why so much late? Makhan, why you are so late? Makham? So this is the case actually, that they may not be in phase, although they are sourced from same origin. Electric field, magnetic field, they are originating from same antenna, same source, but in the medium when they propagate, they can go out of phase depending on the medium property. But still, they actually carry some energy. Electric field and magnetic field, even though they are out of phase, but they are coupled. You should keep in mind, they are coupled. That means electric field actually helping to grow magnetic field surrounding it, and then rate of change of magnetic field will create electric field surrounding it. So in that way, it will go from one place to another place. That is how it can carry the energy. And you can find out, this is the expression it is on. I will share you all this slide with you, then you can get all this formula correctly. But I think I'm delaying that thing, so you just think also, you just consult bit of with textbook also, then your idea will be more clearer. Then you can get this note, that would be helpful. Yeah. So this is the, yeah, sir, tell me.
Sir, there will be a minus ij in front of alpha, right?
Yeah. So
if we put the gamma here, beta will be the lossy part, because in front of beta you have I.
J is there.
J. So that, and there is another J
if
in front of
gamma. No. It is beta, that real term is there. That J beta term is coming together. That is how it is J each factor. Beta is real.
But sir, in gamma we have alpha plus I beta.
Alpha plus J beta. Right. But here we are writing only beta. Because J beta is there, you see, this if you solve, what would be the solution? E to the power plus minus gamma jet.
Yes.
It will be plus minus gamma jet, right?
Yes, sir.
So plus minus gamma jet means it will be plus minus alpha plus j beta. Because it is,
Yes, sir.
it will be just exponential solution here. Because gamma is actually complex, so it will have a decay term as well. It will have a alpha term as well as oscillating term. You understand?
Right, sir.
So that j beta I decomposed here. I took actually the minus sign here. That you can ask me, why minus sign, why not plus is considered here? Because the gamma solutions can be plus minus e to the power plus minus gamma jet, right?
Yes, sir.
Plus
yes,
minus gamma jet.
But
if you consider plus, then that is not a feasible here at this point, because the electric field cannot grow as it propagates, because where from energy it will get? Medium cannot supply energy. It cannot amplify, right? So only we'll accept the feasible solution here. That means alpha must have to be negative. So we should consider gamma as a negative value. Although plus minus gamma e to the power plus minus gamma j will be there, but we'll be taking gamma as a negative sign. So if you take a negative sign, that is actually minus j beta j will be coming, minus alpha minus j beta j. So this is what it is coming here. Got it?
yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So, but thing is that this is actually, if you are considering it is forward propagating, but if it is backward propagating, then also it will be plus, right? Because backward propagating, this should be plus beta jet, positive. And here also you can put plus, but since it is backward propagating, jet can be negative value. So that is how again also backward direction also it will be attenuating. From the source, if at z equal to 0, it is actually radiating, then positive direction it will be attenuating also while propagating, and negative direction it should be attenuating. Okay, so that is how you can put plus gamma, minus gamma, but keep in mind that your value actually is getting attenuated. So take home message, alpha is actually contributing to your loss because it is just simply exponential, but beta not contributing, it is actually oscillating. As a function of z, it is oscillating. If you just freeze t equal to 0, for example, then as a function of z, if you just try to picturize, that will be a sinusoidal curve as a function of z. And again, if you just fix a value z, particular point, and you try to see what is the time dependent variation, that is also time dependent. So when you see that some function is simultaneously time dependent and simultaneously position dependent, then it is actually called traveling type things. Some kind of disturbance is traveling. As a function of time, it is changing. Function of position, it is changing the value. So that is actually kind of traveling wave. When that is associated with a single frequency, it is called a monochromatic traveling wave. And E naught here we are considering as constant, so z dependency part is coming like this. It's a sinusoidal value. And we are assuming that along x direction and y direction, no change is there. That is how it is coming. Clear? Hopefully this idea is clear, right?
Sir, one more question.
Yeah.
Sir.
Who are you asking question? Can you just intro, because I don't see you. What is your name?
Animesh, sir.
Animesh. Tell me. Animesh.
Yes, sir. So usually we associate a loss with dissipation with complex term, right, sir?
Yes.
So if the beta is here in gamma we have alpha plus j beta. So j beta is the complex term. So that should be associated with loss.
No. That is actually a little bit confusion. You should clarify that. You see, when gamma is complex, that is either you should have that medium is lossy or gain medium.
Yes.
That is clear. If gamma is complex, You
Yes.
should not confuse with gamma with the beta.
Okay.
Okay, if gamma is complex, then medium, if alpha is positive, then you are getting a attenuation, and if it is somehow you have a gain medium, for example, like a population inversion in laser medium, right? So you have you have stimulated emission, amplification is there. In that case, you should have a gain, alpha should be positive there. We put that G, gain is there. So if gamma is complex, then fine. But sometimes what happens, I know why you are saying that some textbook you will see that beta is considered. If beta, you forget about alpha. Suppose sigma is 0. If sigma is 0, what is the alpha value? 0, right? If sigma equal to 0, real part is 0,
Yes.
right? But that means your gamma is equal to J beta. But if your epsilon is a complex now, then your beta will become complex now. In this case, it is shown alpha is existing because of the sigma. And once alpha is non-zero, you see loss. But suppose sigma equal to 0, but your epsilon value or mu value is a complex. Then you can write J times beta with beta again is a complex. Or this term, this gamma term will become again some real part and imaginary part. So there also you can see loss. So sometimes you can put gamma equal to J beta, but beta, if you put sigma equal to 0, for example, and mu equal to say mu 0 also you can put, right? Then what you will get, sigma equal to 0, mu 0, and epsilon 0 if you take out, then what you will get? You will get omega by C, right? Square root of omega by C, right? Sorry, omega by C outside. Omega
yes.
times omega by C outside. And inside what will be there? Epsilon R. So beta will be omega by C square root of epsilon R. Can you imagine? Are you getting that? Just
Yes, sir.
follow this equation. Sigma equal to 0 and mu equal to mu 0. Sigma equal to 0 means you are getting J times J. What is that? Minus J times J means you will get outside J.
Yes.
And omega times omega, omega square, outside omega. And mu 0 times, if you just put epsilon as epsilon 0, epsilon R, then mu 0 times epsilon 0, that will be coming out as a 1 by C.
1 by C. Yes.
So omega by C. And within square root, what will be left over? Epsilon R. So this will be J beta equal to J times omega by C square root of epsilon R. J cancel. So beta will be omega by C square root of epsilon R. Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So, and this epsilon R is square root of epsilon R. If it is actually real, that square root is known to us as refractive index. Square root of epsilon R is called refractive index.
Yes.
Right?
Non-magnetic. Yes.
And non-magnetic we are considering. It's only refractive index it will be coming. Just like glass, refractive index is 1.5. 1.5 or so, right? But if this epsilon R, like a metal, for example, or if you are just representing, forgetting about sigma, you are representing only epsilon R as a complex form, then your refractive index will come as a complex. It will have a real part as well as imaginary part. Clear? If
yes,
square epsilon R, so real part, imaginary part, so that in that case, again, you will see some kind of loss. So it depends on how you are treating, how your parameters are coming into this picture. Mathematics is same. You have to deal with this formula only. No other option. Because this is directly coming from Maxwell's equation and it is universally true. Right? Only thing is that what is your situation? What is your material system? How you are framing your problem? Depending on that, you can just consider this thing. So it is clear now. Fine?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. So now we are here that we can get a simple plane wave solution in frequency domain. Frequency domain matlab only one frequency you are considering. Okay, now this is the thing. As I said that, just I took it from some Wikipedia, Google, I think, this picture. You can plot that one also in MATLAB also. So this direction, it is shown as, suppose Z. This is actually Z. So if you are just considering electric field, suppose this is actually your X and this is your Y and this is your Z direction. So Z direction, you see electric field, actually it is a sinusoidal. Field amplitude will be like this, sinusoidal. It is shown arrow because it is a vector. And you are considering, suppose, X direction oscillating. If the material is such that the electric field and magnetic field are in phase, then magnetic field will be Y direction. It is shown horizontally, you see, orthogonal direction, that is also oscillating. And you can show the electromagnetic wave like this. And you know that this point to this point, maxima to maxima, that is actually lambda, period. Okay, that lambda is nothing but, you can relate. If you know the velocity, then you can find out what is the frequency also. But particularly omega equal to 2 pi c by lambda, if it is free space. 2 pi c by lambda equal to f, na? So linear frequency. So that is actually, you can relate. Now, one point I think many of you don't think that very clearly, but I feel that should be clear here. Suppose electric field is oscillating here. And you know that electric field rate of, it will be oscillating plus to minus, right? It is shown here. At this particular point, if it is a Z direction, for example, Z, you just fix this point, position, where maxima is there. Now you wait as a function of time, what is happening? What will happen? Then this electric field will start reducing, and magnetic field also at that point, it will be starting reducing, right? So at certain point, you will find that both electric field and magnetic field is zero here, like here, whatever, now at this point, right? So again, then what happens? This electric field will be negative direction oscillating and magnetic field will be negative direction oscillating. So now my question is, you think a bit. This question is very qualitative, but very interesting. Suppose you just keep on tracking your time at a particular point and try to find what is happening to energy here. You will find an instant of time that the electric field and magnetic field both are zero. That means at that particular point, what is the energy? Zero. Now you just think about that. At a particular point in space, energy is becoming completely zero, and then again it is increasing, decreasing, and then again increasing. So if you forget about your surrounding, if you just concentrate for the moment, that particular point, you see that energy is appearing and disappearing, appearing and disappearing. And you know that electric field, rate of change of electric field actually give rise to magnetic field. And at a particular instant of time, you see neither is there. Electric field is also not there. Magnetic field is also not there. Total energy is disappearing. Then again it is appearing. Probably you could say that this energy coming from elsewhere, from the source coming, and whatever energy here earlier was there, that energy already, where it has gone? When it is, right now it is maxima here, minima here. So maximum energy here. Now next moment, here energy will be disappeared. So that energy, what was there originally, it is not lost completely. What will happen? That energy will be moved to the next point in the right, in the positive z direction. And what was energy earlier was there in the z less than z naught point, that will be coming to this point. So in this way, energy will be flowing in this direction. That is clear. That, okay, it is zero, but where again it is maxima, there energy is there. So you will be seeing like a bubble of energy. Bubble of energy is moving. It is not that continuous energy everywhere you will be getting. It's just like a bubble of energy. If you just solve in time domain, you will see that bubble of energy moving as a function of space. But thing is that let us concentrate only on electric field. I know that electric field is maximum now here. So rate of change of electric field, it is happening here. So there, that's supposed to create your magnetic field. But at the same time, you see magnetic field at that particular point also reducing. How to justify that? And vice versa also. Your rate of change of magnetic field happening, so that should add to your electric field. But you see both are simultaneously changing at that particular point. The answer is yes, rate of change of electric field is it is reducing, that is fine at this particular point. But because of that rate of change of electric field, magnetic field will be created, but not at that particular point. Surrounding region it will create. So that is what Faraday law or Ampere circuital's law. Somewhere if it is rate of change of decreasing means, that means this electric field is losing energy. And that energy will appear as a magnetic field, but outside, surrounding region, not here. So here also magnetic field is reducing. That magnetic field also will generate some electric field, but outside. Because you know from the Ampere circuital law, this H curl of H equal to del B, del D, del T, all those type of things. So that is actually different location. At particular instant, what is happening here, that is as a consequence, you will see magnetic field or electric field at a distance at that particular instant of time. So that is how actually you can imagine that how electromagnetic field is propagating as a traveling wave, and how energy is transferred also. This qualitative understanding you should have when you are dealing with some kind of light wave things. And right side it is shown that if material is somehow having some dielectric constant, or gamma is there, alpha plus j beta, then eta value is complex, then they can go out of phase also. So when it is out of phase, that you see electric field and magnetic field, they are not at the same time increasing and decreasing. So in spite of that also, whenever electric field is changing here, the magnetic field will be creating surrounding region elsewhere at a spatial distance. And we are considering in one direction, so one dimensional thing we'll be considering. Okay, now we are almost done today. I think we'll continue that next thing. I think this Maxwell's equation, I will couple of slides I need to clarify few things, particularly energy conservation. I will be just explaining that, and how that is related to normal electrical circuits also. I will try to little bit touch upon, and then move on to bit of bridging these classical things to quantum. Okay, all right. Any questions? So I suggest that if any question is there, I think next class you come up first 5-6 minutes. We can just discuss about any doubt that can be clarified in the first 5-6 minutes, and then we can move on to the next topic. That is one thing. And tomorrow is a 8 o'clock class. Can we have 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. tomorrow? Anyone having problem at 6 p.m. tomorrow? No one, right? If you have problem, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm taking class tomorrow 6 p.m. Okay, no problem. I think no one is complaining. So tomorrow we will have 6 p.m. class. That is only tomorrow, Friday. All right.